When I was in like second grade, I got this assignment. Maybe you had something similar. The assignment was to make a family tree. You know, it's like every second grade project. It's kind of an art project wrapped with some kind of learning. And the teacher said, I want you to create a family tree with you and your siblings, your parents, and your grandparents. And if you want to include your uncles and aunts, that's great. Well, my dad was one of those dads in second grade who found a project, like one of my projects in school, that he got really interested in, and he did like 90% of the work, and I turned it in and got a good grade. I'm sure my teacher knew what was going on, but I got to be part of it. Anyways, he said, Martin, we're not just going to do the grandparents and us. We're going to do a real research project. And I was in second grade. I didn't know what research meant, but I knew it was probably a bad thing, and it was going to be more work. But the coolest thing happened. We called my granddad on my mom's side, and I talked to my granddad. We talked for like an hour, which you didn't do when you're in second grade. And he told me all about our family history, how his parents had been railroad conductors in coal country, and how they had grown up in the mountains and hadn't had a lot, but it had been this amazing place to grow up. He told me about way back to like the Civil War and our ancestors who had been generals, or even further back beyond that, people who were related to presidents. And it was like, this is amazing. This is so cool. And then we talked to my grandmother on my dad's side, and she told us all about all of our history in Mississippi, and how like a bunch of our family on that side of our family tree were Native American in heritage, and how all these stories came together, and then we created this family tree. And it had like all of these branches and all of these names, and how they all collected, and they like filtered down to me and my brother. Quick sidebar. I turned that in. It's probably the best grade I've ever gotten on a project in my entire life. Second grade family tree I really nailed it. But what we also learned is that there were like total nutballs in my family tree. People who were crazy and like sometimes got arrested, and all kinds of madness. But what I love about looking at a family tree is you realize that all the branches filter down to you. Like all of the people in this family tree in some way shaped the other people, and that filters down to you. So in some ways, like we got shaped by all the people in our family trees. Like we are shaped by all the people around us. I love that the very beginning of the New Testament, in the Gospel of Matthew, the very first thing that the writer of Matthew wants to like show us is a family tree of Jesus. All the way back, all the descendants from Adam to King David to Jesus, all the people that were in Jesus' family tree. And you know what's amazing about that? This is Jesus, right? Like this is the Son of God. It should be a pretty normal, like these are the best of the best. Like you can't have bad apples in Jesus' family tree, except that it's full of them. There were prostitutes in Jesus' family tree. There were kings that had affairs and sent the husbands of the people they had affairs with to die in battles. Like there were messy people in his family tree. It's almost like Jesus is saying, yeah, I'm God, but I know what it's like to have people who aren't perfect in your inner circle. I know what it's like to have people shape you that weren't the best. If you want to know where I belong, it's with people just like that. We are all shaped by the people around us. It's part of what makes us us. We're the products of all the people who mentor us and give us wisdom. In the book, well, later in the New Testament, there's a guy named Paul, and he probably started more churches in history than anybody ever. He wrote most of the New Testament. And what he did is he started finding some young, like teenagers. He started mentoring them so that they could do what he did. He would leave them, after he left a church, he would leave them there to help mentor a church, to help it grow, to help it get started. And one of those guys' names was Timothy. And so Paul wrote some letters to Timothy. You can find them in the Bible. They're called 1st and 2nd Timothy, I guess, obviously. But in the first letter to Timothy, Paul writes to Timothy and says, don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but in everything, set them an example in speech, in life, in love, in faith, and in purity. It's like Paul is saying, yeah, just like people wouldn't believe that like there could be some bad apples in Jesus's family tree. There could have been some bad apples influencing Jesus. The same is true of you. Like, you have a legacy to leave. Don't let anyone tell you that because you're a teenager, you can't be a leader, that you can't have an impact, that the ripple effects of your love, of your impact aren't real. He's saying to Timothy, who you are is what other people need. So don't let anyone discount you because you're a teenager. It's like Paul's saying the same thing today. You have an impact to leave. You have an opportunity to mentor and pour into and invest in the people around you. And don't let anybody say you can't because you're just a teenager.